Said I was in my early 40s with a lot of life before me, when a moment came that stopped me on a dime. I spent most of the next days looking at the x-rays, talking about the options and talking about sweet time. I asked him when it sank in that this might really be the real end. How's it get you when you get that kind of news? Man, what'd you do? And he said,
I went skydiving, I went Rocky Mountain climbing, I went 2.7 seconds on a bowling Fu Manchu. And I loved deeper, and I spoke sweeter, and I gave forgiveness I've been denying. And he said, someday I hope you get the chance to live like you were dying. Hello, hello. My name is Martha, and I am a certified death doula, and welcome to Tales of a Death Doula. We were just playing you in there with Tim McGraw's song, Live Like You Were Dying, and that's the theme of today's podcast. So settle in and listen to another version of Tales of a Death Doula. So welcome. Again, my name is Martha, and I am a certified death doula. And what that means is that I am a non-medical professional who is trained to help coach people in their dying process. I help with emotional, with spiritual, and with practical guidance to help coach both individuals and their families through the end-of-life process. As a death doula, I have studied a lot, not just about the practical knowledge of what happens to your body as you die, but also been on quite a spiritual quest to understand the teachings of so many different traditions about what happens to your spiritual body as you die. It's really opened up a whole new way for me to understand more about life by studying about death. In today's podcast, we're going to talk a little bit about what that song was trying to convey, to live like you were dying. Sometimes it takes a health scare to really kind of shock you into facing your own mortality, and to realize that through this crisis, it can actually be a portal to a spiritual awakening. Sometimes brushes with illness or having a fright, if you've ever had a car wreck or some brush with realizing how fragile your life is, it can give you a whole new perspective on this whole life and death cycle that we're all in, and really help awaken you to what your soul's purpose is. In this podcast, I want us to be really intentional with this topic. It's not about sensationalizing death. It's not about being morbid in thinking about the fragility of life, but it's really a time to celebrate how special this moment of life is, and how so much about life can be understood by facing your own mortality. So sometimes in this moment, if you've ever been in a doctor's office and had shocking news about a condition that might threaten your livelihood, or been in an accident like I mentioned, and have a sudden realization. It's a shock to realize, oh my goodness, I could die. I could die from this. And it's fear, immediate fear. Your body might clench. Your stomach might clench up. Sometimes my jaw, if I get into a scary situation, my jaw will clench up. And you just have this holding on, clenching sensation of not yet, not yet, not yet. You're not ready to face that moment. But inevitably it does come to most, if not all of us, to face that mortality moment. And we're going to talk about how that moment can be the moment when you realize, what have I been doing with my life? Am I following my soul's purpose? Am I living in alignment with my true self? It really kind of boils down and gives you the essence of what's really important in life. Is that work project that I'm behind on really as important as not going to my child's concert or something like that? It really, really, really helps condense the meaning of what we're all here to do, is live and learn how to love each other. And it boils down into that moment of realizing that, oh, you could die at any moment. I've had a couple of health scares that I was frightened like this, of thinking, oh my goodness, this might be it. This might be the moment. I, in my 30s, had a tumor that had grown on my ear. So right behind your ear, you have a number of salivary glands. This is where your salivary glands are. And I had a tumor that was growing on my salivary gland. I've also got a bundle of nerves, all your nerves in your face, basically all the nerves that control your jaw and your tongue and your swallowing, and all of those things are all bundled right here under your earlobe. That's why it's so tender and sensitive right there. So I had a big tumor. It was about the size of a quarter growing right here. And I remember I was scared and I didn't want to go to the doctor because I didn't want to face any kind of truth about that might be the end of me. And I remember sitting in the shower as the water was showering down on me, just sitting in the shower crying, thinking, oh my gosh, I must have a cancer tumor and I'm going to die. And it was really, really frightening. Going to the doctor and then getting it biopsied and then eventually having the tumor removed left me with half of my face paralyzed because all these nerves are bundled really tightly in there. And as they cut the tumor away, they scraped on a couple of the nerves and it left my face paralyzed. For about a year, I went around like this, not able to move half of my face. And thankfully, I've regained the nerve functionality, but it was very, very frightening. And I was so relieved when the tests came back after the surgery that it was non-cancerous and that it was non-malignant. But it was very frightening. And that was one of my first kind of brushes with realizing that, oh, wait a minute. At any moment, something could happen and I could die. I could die. It's different when somebody else is dying that you love, that your grandparents or a parent or friend might be dying, but to realize I could die. It was shocking. I've had a couple of health scares like that. I had a pain under my top rib, under my breast, and I thought I might have breast cancer. And I did the same thing. I kind of went into denial and didn't want to go to the doctor and didn't want to get it checked out, but I was having this ongoing, consistent pain. And again, thankfully, it was non-cancerous. So I've had, these scrapes. I want to call them a lucky lucky escapes of having run-ins where I think it might be the end of me. And thankfully, for at the moment, nothing has been considered to be, terminal at this moment. But it's very frightening, and it really slams you in the face that, oh, you could die. And I remember when I thought I had the breast cancer, that came about right after my mother had passed. My mother passed away in my arms. She died of a sudden heart attack while I happened to be at her house, and literally dying in my arms. And after seeing her pass away so suddenly, so quickly, shockingly, and then having this sudden pain and being so afraid that maybe I might be dying too after seeing my mother die, and I didn't want to die and leave my father. I felt responsible for taking care of my father. And it just hit different that I could die and leave, the care of my loved one. So in such a precarious position, it wasn't even so much about me at that point. It was about caring for my loved one. But it was a real wake-up call. And that's really, honestly, that kicked in my spiritual quest and my spiritual journey. That's when I started studying about how to become a death doula. And that's when I started having really vivid meditations and vivid lucid dreams. And it really sent me on a spiritual quest. I started doing yoga retreats and going to energy healers and really delving into studying philosophy and reading Carl Jung and really getting into the spiritual quest, because I thought I might be dying and I really wanted to learn as much as I possibly could. I read the Egyptian Book of the Dead and the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and I wanted to kind of delve into this topic and learn as much as I possibly could. If I was going to die, I wanted to know as much as I possibly could about what other traditions had taught. And so these health scares can be a portal to your spiritual awakening, whether it's terminal or not. It happened in my case that I was not terminally dying, although, like Bob Dylan says, if you're not living, then you're dying. So we're all on our road to dying. The moment that you're born, you're walking your path towards death, right? But really getting into this and studying about what is this business of dying, and why don't we know more about it, and why do we have it as such a scary, scary thing? And I knew that so many other cultures had already written and talked about so much about this and really had studied this death business. And it can serve as a spiritual awakening. When you have that moment of, having a health scare kind of strip away all of your illusions about who you think you are and what you think you have in this world. If you think that you're a business person and you drive this nice car and you have this nice house, none of that matters. When you're about to think about dying, you really get stripped down to the essence of who you are, who you truly are. And it's such a blessing. I want to say it's a blessing. It honestly is. It can give you gratitude and teach you how to live in this present moment. It kind of can slow down all the hustle and bustle of this world, and it boils everything down into this really potent moment of exactly what is happening in your life. It can also help you let go. When I thought I had the breast cancer, I cleaned out my closet and I was giving things away because I realized I don't need to hold on. There's nothing in this world that I truly, really own. I mean, a house and clothes and all that. You can't take it with you. And it really was a moment of letting go and not holding on, getting that moment of clenching and holding on to life, and then taking a breath and just easing into this beautiful experience of letting go. It reminds me, today happens to be September 21st, which is the autumnal equinox in North America, in the Northern Hemisphere. And it's just such a beautiful season of just that letting go and taking a moment to pause and release. And that's what a health scare can kind of do. It really takes you down to your essence and teaches you how to let go. It also teaches you a closer connection to your own body, your own internal bodily awareness. There's a medical term, it's called introception instead of perception, how you perceive the world around you. Introception is the medical term for being aware of your internal body, of what's happening, your feelings. Your body is always communicating with you. It's as if your body is kind of like tapping you on the shoulder going, hey, you need to pay attention here. You need to give this some awareness. When I had my pain in my upper rib section that, was giving me, hey, you need to be more present and become very aware. If you've ever practiced the mind-heart meditation, we've done that several times on this podcast, where we take a moment and put your hand on your heart and feel your heart beat. And then you drop all your thoughts into your heart and just feel your breath. Feeling your heartbeat, internally kind of visualizing what's going on with your heart, getting into those chambers of your heart, having your blood fill up with oxygen and swoosh through that chamber, passing it along, and you kind of think about what's going on in that heart. And you are introceptive. That means you're kind of very aware of what's going on internally inside your body. I have a practice of introception that I do that's a little risque, but we're going to talk about it anyway because it's very, very potent exercise for me. And that is that anytime that I get this clenching kind of reaction to life, whether it be a moment of facing my mortality or facing any kind of anxious condition in life, I try to do the introceptive practice of, again, the mind-heart meditation, but I also add a little extra. This is a little Martha-ism. I relax. How do I say this in a nice, polite way? I relax my butthole. Basically, I think about internally releasing and just not, releasing my buttocks muscles, but releasing literally my butthole, my bumhole. And something about knowing it's a safety mechanism for me. When I can be introspective enough that I can concentrate and relax and breathe out the out breath longer than the in breath, and I can breathe that all the way down to my rectum and relax the sphincter. It just sounds crazy to talk about, but try it. It really does work to make you feel grounded and safe. It's a safety mechanism that in my world, getting to that point of relaxation where I can just truly relax and literally release the tension in my lower sphincter. It's like, how do I describe it? It's like getting a hug from the mother of the universe, hugging me like you would hold a baby, holding their bum in the arms of the universe. And I feel held, and I feel safe. And I feel that when I can relax to that point, it makes me, I get a little bit emotional talking about it, because even though it sounds so crazy, relaxing your butthole can be a spiritual practice of introspection. That when you get to that point of relaxation and trust, I feel the universe hold me in that trust moment of you're safe. And it's a safety kind of introspection. So give it a try. It can be quite profound to do that. There again, I wanted to go back to all of the lessons about death and dying that have been passed down through so many different cultures. The Buddhists have several. They've really dug into this death thing. And they have several practices that I have found truly helpful to my clients and to my own studies and seeking knowledge about death and dying. And I wanted to talk to you about some of these Buddhist practices of studying about mortality, and kind of practices that can help you remember that death brings us into focus of living fully. Death can bring you into a focus of living fully. And it can be a beautiful thing. Whether you are terminal or not, we are all terminal at some point in this life. One of the practices that has been very helpful for me is a Buddhist practice called Maranasanti. Maranasanti means mindfulness of death. It actually means death awareness or a recollection of death. It is mindfully practicing a meditation on death. And it's where practitioners contemplate that life is impermanent, fragile, and that death is inevitable. Again, it's not meant to be morbid. None of this is meant to be morbid. It's clarifying. If death came at any moment, what truly matters right now? In this moment of now, if death were to be upon you, what truly matters in your life right now? It brings this whole practice of the present moment into such vivid awareness of reality. Like, really, you could die right now. What matters right now? Cuts through. It totally cuts through all the illusions that we surround ourselves with throughout the day. There's another practice that the Buddhist monks use, and it's a cemetery meditation. And in Buddhist traditions throughout Asia, in particular in Tibet, Buddhist monks would literally go to cemetery grounds where bodies are laid out and left to decompose. And they would meditate in the cemetery areas where these bodies were laid, interned for death. And they would, they would they would look at, these dead bodies in different phases of decomposition. And they would, see the bones and the ashes after they were cremated and all of this, bodily decay process. And they would sit and meditate with these dead bodies. And it's, again, not to be morbid. It's not a horror exercise. It's not about horror. It's about facing the impermanence of this flesh and bones body that we have. This isn't permanent. Your soul is what is permanent. And it really brings home that what we cling to, what we hold, try to holding on to love and life and loved ones and everything that you have in this world, it brings suffering. And that's the practice of letting go that we can only learn by facing our mortality. And so it's a really kind of shocking practice, but it makes so much more sense. And it makes so much more sense than what we do here in the West, where we don't look at death and we, if you do have an open casket, then your body's been filled with all these chemicals and they've put makeup on you and, put you in a suit or something, and it doesn't look like the real person anyway, but they've made you look like you're alive, as opposed to facing what's really happening, facing a dying body, a dead body. It's a real practice in the fragility of life. The Tibetan monks also have a practice on the Bardo teachings. If you've ever read the Tibetan Book of the Dead, it is a practice of visualizing your own death, visualizing the dissolution and the journey through the bardos. The bardos are the intermediate stages of the afterlife according to the Buddhist tradition. And if a loved one is nearing death, quite often in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, you will have a monk come and read the Tibetan Book of the Dead, basically kind of as a guidepost. I want to say it's like they're giving them the information on where to go and how to get through the bardo. And it's like a tour guide walking you through your dying phases. And it's a really interesting study on some beliefs about what happens in the afterlife upon dying. But it serves as like a way to familiarize themselves with the dying process, and it takes away a lot of the fear. It's to cultivate fearlessness and readiness for liberation, to liberate your soul, to jump into that abyss without any fear. So they read the bardo to people who are in their dying process as a way to serve as a guide, to help them not be afraid and to give them tips and tricks. It really is kind of a guidepost to ways to get through anything scary on the other side. So with this, I'd like to take a moment and let's do a brief meditation, if you will. Let's practice a mortality meditation so that you can understand that it's not about scary, morbid horror stuff. It can really serve as a very powerful tool to help you really get to the essence of who you are and what you're doing here, and embrace the life, the unctuous, lovely, beautiful, holy thing that we're here on this planet to live through and to enjoy and to learn from by kind of meditating on death. So let's do a mortality meditation. If you will, please, let's just take a breath, sit comfortably, find a comfortable position. I'm going to ask you to close your eyes and slow your breathing. Take an in-breath and make your out-breath longer than your in-breath. As you continue to breathe in and letting that out-breath be longer than your in-breath, there's some real science behind why we want that out-breath to be longer than the in-breath. Because throughout history, if you were being chased by a lion, you didn't have time to take a long out-breath. Having the out-breath be longer than your in-breath means you're safe. You're in a safe space. So let's just hold this space together. Breathing in and stretching out that out-breath longer and longer. And as you breathe in, I feel this breath. And breathing out, I know this breath will one day be my last. I remember this body is temporary. This life is precious. One day I will die. I do not know how or when. Because death is certain and the time is uncertain, I choose to live fully in this moment. I let go of what no longer matters. I open to what is true. Each heartbeat is a gift. Each breath is a teacher. Each moment is sacred. May I live today awake, grateful, and aligned with my soul. And when death does come, may I greet it as an old friend guiding me home. Take another deep breath. Feel gratitude for this moment. And when you're ready, open your eyes, carrying this awareness of this precious sacred life with you through your day. And with that, I'm going to close their podcast. If you have enjoyed this message today, please like and subscribe to our podcast down below. I would love to hear your comments. If you have faced your own mortality and found any relief through the realization that life is precious and brief, please comment and let me know your thoughts. And please join us again for another episode of Tales of a Death Doula. Have a blessed day.